Hey guys, welcome to the Vintage Hen and Chick, and a special welcome if you're new. My name is Shelly, and in today's video, I am going to be doing an old window makeover. I am taking an old chippy window and some decoupage paper and turning it into a beautiful piece of wall decor. So if you enjoy trash to treasure upcycles, thrift flips, furniture flips, or crafting in general, you're in the right place. Make sure to subscribe to my channel, and that way you'll get notified when I upload a new video. And let's get started. Here is my old window. It is old, it is chippy, it is beautiful, but it is filthy. So the first thing that I need to do is really get this window clean. And so I'm just using an all-purpose cleaner, and I am scrubbing the entire window, the front, the back, all over. And there's a lot of chippy paint on the window, and so I'm going to use a scraper to get all the loose paint off. I'm also going to use a razor blade to get any of the paint off the actual glass that's been left on over the years. And so I'm just going to thoroughly clean this window. You want to get your windows super clean before you upcycle them. That way you have no issues with your decoupage paper or your paint sticking to your window. So I'm going to continue to clean this window, wash it thoroughly, dry it thoroughly, and once it is spotlessly clean, then we'll start with the next step of the project. The only thing that was wrong with this window was that it was filthy. And so it just needed a good cleaning. I double checked the glass was all intact. I didn't have to make any repairs there. Sometimes when I upcycle old windows, the glass can be a little wobbly, and then I'll just reinforce it with some glazing. But this window, everything was intact. It was just dirty, needed a good cleaning, and it was good to go. A lot of times also on old windows, I do paint them, but I love the chippy yellow of this window, and so I thought I'm just going to leave it as is. The back's going to get painted and cleaned up, but the front I am just going to leave that beautiful chippy patina yellow paint. So my window is all clean and ready to go. It looks a ton better already. And I'm going to be using some decoupage paper on this window. And in the bigger part of the window, I'm going to be using a piece of decoupage paper that's called Royal Rooster, and it's by Dixie Belle. And I'm just kind of placing it under there and dry fitting it to make sure that it fits okay in there and you don't see any of the white trim around the decoupage paper. And the paper seemed to fit perfectly, but I wanted to make sure that you don't see any of the white trim. And so I'm just going to take some Dixie Belle Black Caviar paint and paint around the border of this decoupage paper. That way I can put it in as a whole piece, and it's all black and it all blends in, and you don't see any of the glass clear through, and everything looks good. So I'm just going to take my caviar paint, go around the frame of this piece of decoupage paper, painting the border, that's white, with black just to make sure that I have a cohesive look when I add this piece of decoupage paper to my window. So I painted the border on my decoupage paper and it's dry. I didn't want any of that white peeking through. And now I'm going to decoupage the paper right to the back side of the window directly onto the glass. And the decoupage medium that I'm going to be using today is Dixie Belle Top Coat in the satin finish. Right now it is my favorite decoupage medium. I've been using it a lot lately and it works really well. So I'm going to use the satin top coat and I'm going to start on one side of the decoupage paper and just laying down what I call a starter strip. And I'm just going to work from section to section, one side of the window to the other, applying my satin top coat directly to the glass, laying down my decoupage paper and smoothing it out with my hand and the brush, making sure there are no wrinkles or bubbles in my decoupage paper. And what's nice about the Dixie Belle decoupage rice paper is it is thicker. It's not like a tissue paper, it's thicker than a tissue paper. So it's a little bit sturdier and it doesn't tear as easy as, say, like a tissue paper decoupage paper. So I'm going to keep working on this piece, moving from one side to the other, applying it to this whole window, and then sealing it in with the top coat once I have it completely applied. Now on the bottom half of the window, I'm going to be using some decoupage paper by Redesign by Prima, and the pattern is Abstract Beauty. And I cut out my pieces of decoupage paper beforehand and fit them in the spaces that they're going to be going. So I'm going to do exactly what I did with the rooster, and I'm going to apply my satin top coat to the glass and lay my decoupage paper down, getting it exactly how I want it to be. And then I'm going to smooth out any wrinkles or bubbles with my hands and then use my brush to apply a top coat to the decoupage paper. And the Redesign by Prima paper is it's really sturdy and thick. It's more like a fabric feeling to it. So you can maneuver it and move it around a lot easier than you can a traditional decoupage tissue paper. So I'm going to continue working each window here, laying down the decoupage paper, smoothing it down with my hands, and then putting the top coat on. And then we'll let it completely dry and then move on to the next step. So I let the decoupage paper completely dry, and now I'm gonna paint the back side of the decoupage paper with Dixie Belle's fluff. Now typically when I decoupage something, I will paint the surface in a white or a very light color so that way my decoupage paper pops. When I'm doing windows like this, I can't do it that way, so I'm doing kind of a reverse process of that, and I'm painting the back side of the decoupage paper. Now this is an optional step and it's personal preference. I did not want light coming through my window, which is why I'm painting the back side of the decoupage paper in the white paint. I want it to be a solid back there. If you want your window to be more opaque and you want to see light coming through that window, you can completely skip this step. But like I said, I wanted no light coming through my window, so I'm going to paint all the decoupage paper with one coat of white on the back. And I thought while I'm back here, I'm also just going to paint the back of the frame as well. You're not going to see the frame once I'm all done, but I thought I'd just clean it up a little bit. So I'm going to continue to paint the back side of the decoupage paper, and then we will move on to the next step. So I ended up doing 2 coats of the white over the rooster decoupage paper and then 1 coat of white over the other decoupage paper. And now I'm going to seal the front side of the chippy paint with the Dixie Belle top coat in the satin finish. I just want to make sure that all of the chippy paint, everything on this front of the window is sealed in nicely. When I cleaned the window, I did get all the loose paint off, but I want that chippy look to stay intact. And so I'm going to seal the whole front of the window. And when I was doing my painting on the back side of the decoupage paper, I had kind of a happy little surprise. Now, I've never painted the back side of the Redesign by Prima decoupage paper. And I noticed that after one coat, the paint kind of soaked through the decoupage paper, and you may be able to see it here. And it kind of made the decoupage paper look like some vintage, old, rustic wallpaper. And I loved how that turned out. Like I said, I've never done that before, but it was a happy mistake, and I think it turned out beautiful. And you'll be able to see it better at the end when I reveal the finished project. Now, whenever I do a window like this, I always finish the back to protect the wall that it's hanging on and to make sure it looks just nice and neat and clean. And I like to use builder's paper. And I buy this by the roll at either Amazon or Menards or Home Depot. You can get it anywhere. And then I take my hot glue gun and I glue the builder's paper around the entire back of the window. I pre-cut my piece of paper beforehand, and I cut it a little bit bigger than the window so I have a little bit of excess on the edge to make sure everything fits. So I'm just going to take my hot glue gun, run a bead of it around the outer edge of the window, and then smooth down the builder's paper, and that's going to give the back of this window a nice finished look. Now, like I said, I left a little bit of overhang on my builder's paper, and now I'm just going to clean that up. And how I like to do that is I just take my X-Acto knife and I run it right against the edge of the window, just cleaning off that excess paper. And then I will take my finger sander and go sand in a downward motion around the whole outside of the window to clean off any extra and make it look nice and neat and finished. So I'm going to keep going around the window with my finger sander and my X-Acto knife to give it a nice clean finish, and then we'll move on to the next step in the process. So I've cleaned up all the edges around the window, and now I'm going to install my hanging system. And so I am measuring down about 5 inches from the top of my window and marking it with a pen on both sides. And then I'm going to use some D hooks that I get on Amazon as my hanging system and 17 gauge wire. And I will link everything in the description box below that I used on this project. So I'm taking my D hook here and I'm going to use the screwdriver and just attach it to the back of the window on each side of the frame. And these D hooks and the 17 gauge wire work really nice for these windows for hanging on the walls. I've never had a problem with them. The windows are heavy, and so you want something really sturdy to hang them on the wall. So I will add the other D hook on the other side, and then we will install our wire. So I'm taking a piece of 17 gauge wire that I purchased at, I think I got this at Harbor Freight. And then I start on one side of the D hook and I put it inside of the hook and I leave enough excess to get a good tight grip around there, and I just twist it around the wire, and then I use a nippers to snip off the extra, and then a needle nose pliers to squeeze down any sharp edges so that it doesn't damage the wall it's hanging on or rip the paper. And then I'll do that on the other side, tightening it around itself, making sure that I have a short enough hanger so that way you don't see it above the window, and making sure that I have it secured nicely, wrapped around there several times, and then squeezed tight with the needle nose pliers. And here is the finished window. I think it turned out so beautiful. I love the combination of the original chippy window with the contrast between the two decoupage papers. I just think everything looks so good together and plays so nicely together. And like I mentioned before, with my happy mistake, with the paint kind of seeping through that decoupage paper on the bottom, it just works with this project. It makes it look like it is vintage wallpaper behind this window. So what do you think of how this project turned out? Thank you so much for watching today's video, and I hope I've inspired you to upcycle your old windows that you have laying around in your basement, your garage, or your barn, because it's so much fun to turn them into something so beautiful that you can hang on your wall as beautiful home decor. I will link all the items that I used in this project in the description box below, and you can find many of these items on my website at thevintagehenandchick.com. I'll be back next week with another video, and I hope to see you then. Be sure to subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell, and that way you'll get notified every time I upload a new video. Thank you all so much for watching, and have a wonderful day.